The Boeing 737 shuddered through turbulence at 37,000 feet, passengers gripping armrests as coffee spilled across tray tables. In seat 17A, Emilia Falcon, Restrepo, adjusted her worn denim jacket and stared out the oval window at storm clouds gathering like bruised fists against the horizon. The flight attendants had stopped serving drinks 20 minutes ago. Most passengers assumed it was standard procedure during rough weather. They were wrong. Captain Morrison's voice crackled through the intercom, artificially calm. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're experiencing some minor technical difficulties. Please remain seated with your seatbelts fastened." But Emilia heard what others missed, the micro-tremor in his voice, the way he clipped the word technical. 22 years flying military aircraft had taught her to read fear in a pilot's cadence. The businessman beside her, clutching his briefcase like a life preserver, noticed her steady breathing. "Aren't you scared?" he whispered, sweat beading his forehead. Emilia's dark eyes remained fixed on the window. Not yet. What the 317 souls aboard Flight 447 didn't know was that 6 minutes earlier, radar stations across 3 states had detected an unidentified aircraft shadowing their commercial flight. The object moved with impossible precision, matching their altitude and speed while maintaining a distance that suggested either advanced technology or exceptional piloting skill. At NORAD's Cheyenne Mountain Complex, controllers stared at screens showing 2 blips flying in perfect formation. The larger signature belonged to Flight 447. The smaller one had no transponder, no flight plan, no radio contact. "Sir, we've got a situation," Technical Sergeant Rodriguez called across the dimly lit command center. "Unidentified aircraft, military-grade stealth profile, tracking Flight 447 inbound to Denver International." Colonel Hayes approached the console, his weathered face illuminated by the green glow of radar screens. "How long has it been shadowing them?" 7 minutes confirmed, possibly longer. "Ghost contact, sir. Whatever it is, it's good." The colonel's jaw tightened. In his 30-year career, he'd seen every type of aircraft the military possessed. This signature was familiar yet wrong, like recognizing a song played in a different key. "Scramble 2 F-22s from Peterson," he ordered. "Full weapons load, and get me a passenger manifest for that commercial flight." 8 miles below, Emilia felt the subtle change in engine pitch that meant the pilots were requesting a different altitude. Storm clouds pressed closer to the aircraft, but her attention was drawn to something else, a reflection in the window that shouldn't exist at this altitude. A metallic glint moving parallel to their flight path, just visible through the cloud cover. Her hand unconsciously moved to the small Falcon pin on her collar. The Interceptor F-22 Raptors launched from Peterson Air Force Base with afterburners painting orange streaks across the Colorado sky. Major Jackson "Hammer" Williams led the formation, his wingman Lieutenant Sarah "Viper" Chen maintaining perfect position 300 feet to starboard. Their radar painted the commercial airliner as a large, steady contact, but the mysterious shadow remained intermittent, appearing and vanishing like a ghost in the digital noise. "Control, this is Hammer Flight. We have visual on the commercial traffic but negative contact on the bogey," Williams transmitted, his F-22 slicing through thin air at Mach 1.2. "Copy Hammer. Bogey last seen bearing 090 relative to commercial traffic. Maintain intercept course." The 2 Raptors climbed toward the airliner's altitude, their advanced sensors probing the surrounding airspace. At this height, the sky was a cathedral of blue-black infinity, with only the distant navigation lights of Flight 447 marking human presence in the void. Chen's radar warning receiver suddenly chirped. "Hammer, I've got intermittent returns. Something's out there, but it's playing hide and seek. Stay sharp, Viper. Whatever it is, it doesn't want to be seen." Inside the commercial airliner, Captain Morrison received an encrypted communication from air traffic control. The message was brief but unambiguous. Military aircraft were now escorting his flight due to a security concern. He was instructed to maintain current heading and altitude, with no deviation permitted. First Officer Janet Reeves noticed her captain's knuckles whiten on the yoke. "What's going on, Skip?" "We've got company," Morrison replied, his voice tight. "The kind that carries missiles." In the cabin, Amelia watched the cloud layer thin, revealing patches of clear sky. For just a moment, she glimpsed two contrails forming perfect parallel lines high above them, the telltale signature of military jets in formation. But what caught her attention was a third contrail, fainter and more dispersed, suggesting an aircraft using different propulsion technology. The businessman noticed her sudden tension. "What is it?" "We're not alone up here," she murmured, pressing her palm against the cool window. The years had taught her to recognize the sound of her own ghosts returning. Major Williams adjusted his helmet-mounted display, scanning the infrared spectrum for heat signatures. The commercial airliner glowed bright orange in thermal imaging, its engines producing massive heat blooms. But somewhere in the surrounding darkness, another signature flickered in and out of existence, too cold for a conventional jet, too hot for a bird. "Control, Hammer flight is at Angels 37, co-altitude with the commercial. Still no visual on the bogey, but I'm getting ghost returns on thermal." "Copy Hammer. Commercial traffic reports normal flight operations. Maintain escort position." The F-22s settled into a loose formation around Flight 447, their pilots' eyes constantly sweeping the sky. Years of training had taught them that the most dangerous threats were often invisible until the moment of attack. Lieutenant Chen focused her sensors on the commercial airliner itself, running identification protocols on the large Boeing. "Hammer, I'm painting the commercial traffic clearly, but there's something odd about the flight profile. They're flying too steady for normal passenger operations in this weather." "Explain." "Look at the flight path data. No course corrections, no altitude changes, no speed variations. It's like someone else is flying that plane." Williams felt ice form in his stomach. In his experience, commercial pilots were never that precise. They constantly made small adjustments for weather, traffic, and passenger comfort. This 737 was flying like a military aircraft under autopilot control. "Control, Hammer flight requesting permission to establish visual contact with the commercial traffic." "Negative Hammer, maintain current separation." But Williams was already nudging his F-22 closer, curiosity overriding protocol. As the Raptor closed to within 500 feet, he could see passengers through the aircraft's windows. Most appeared calm, unaware of the drama unfolding around them. All except one. In seat 17A, a woman with dark hair was staring directly at his aircraft, with an expression he recognized, the 1,000-yard stare of someone who'd seen combat. Her gaze followed his F-22 with the practiced eye of a pilot, tracking his movement with an accuracy that made his skin crawl. "Viper, take a look at the commercial traffic. Window seat, passenger side, about 2/3 aft." Chen maneuvered her Raptor for a better angle. Through her helmet display's magnification, she could see the woman clearly. Something about her posture, her alertness, seemed wrong for a civilian passenger. "I see her, Hammer. She's watching us like she knows what we are." "Check the passenger manifest. I want to know who's in seat 17A." The radio crackled with static as Colonel Hayes' voice cut through from NORAD. "All aircraft, we have a priority transmission. The bogey has just painted both F-22s with targeting radar. Repeat, you are being tracked by unknown hostile aircraft." Williams' blood turned to ice. Somewhere in the sky around them, an invisible predator had just locked onto his formation. His radar warning receiver remained silent, but NORAD's ground-based sensors had detected the targeting beam. "Viper defensive spread. We've got a problem. The two F-22s immediately separated, creating a wider formation that would force any attacker to choose between targets. Williams' hands moved automatically to his weapons controls, arming air-to-air missiles while his eyes searched the empty sky. In the commercial airliner below, Emilia felt the subtle change in atmospheric pressure that meant high-performance aircraft were maneuvering nearby. The businessman had fallen asleep, but she remained alert, watching the interplay of contrails above them. A memory surfaced unbidden. The last time she'd been in a cockpit, 12 years ago, when everything had gone wrong. When her call sign had become a legend and a curse, spoken in whispers by pilots who'd never met her but knew her story. She touched the Falcon pin again, feeling its familiar weight against her fingers. Outside, in the thin air of the stratosphere, death was circling at 500 miles per hour. Williams' radar painting console lit up like a Christmas tree. The mysterious aircraft had finally revealed itself, appearing 3 miles directly ahead of Flight 447 and climbing fast. The signature was unlike anything in his recognition database, too angular for a conventional fighter, too large for a drone, too fast for anything that should exist. Control, Hammer Flight has radar contact on the bogey. Unknown aircraft type, bearing 010, range 3 miles and closing on the commercial traffic. Hammer, you are cleared to intercept. Use caution, we still don't know who or what we're dealing with. The two F-22s accelerated toward the unknown aircraft, their engines transitioning to full military power. At this speed, the gap closed rapidly, but the bogey seemed to anticipate their movement, adjusting course with mechanical precision. Chen's voice crackled through the radio. Hammer, that thing is flying like it's computer-controlled. No human pilot makes corrections that smooth. As they closed to visual range, both pilots strained to identify the mysterious aircraft. What they saw defied explanation. A triangular craft with no visible engines, no exhaust signature, no navigation lights. It moved through the air with the fluid grace of a bird of prey. Control, Hammer Flight has visual on the bogey. Unknown aircraft type, triangular configuration, no visible propulsion. Requesting rules of engagement. Colonel Hayes stared at the tactical display in disbelief. The unknown aircraft was now flying in perfect formation with the commercial airliner, matching its speed and altitude with impossible precision. More disturbing was the complete lack of radio communication from either aircraft. Hammer Flight, attempt radio contact with both aircraft. Standard emergency frequencies. Williams switched to the International Emergency Channel. Unknown aircraft flying in formation with commercial traffic. This is United States Air Force. Identify yourself and state your intentions. Silence. Commercial traffic, Flight 447, this is Air Force intercept. Respond immediately. More silence. Then, cutting through the static with crystal clarity, a woman's voice spoke from the commercial airliner. Air Force intercept, this is Falcon. I've got the situation under control. The effect of that call sign on the F-22 pilots was immediate and electric. Falcon was a legend in military aviation circles, a ghost story told in pilot-ready rooms about an experimental test pilot who had disappeared during a classified mission 12 years ago. The official record listed her as killed in action, but rumors persisted about a pilot who had achieved the impossible. Williams felt his mouth go dry. Say again, commercial traffic, identify yourself. Hammer Flight, this is Colonel Emilia Restrepo, call sign Falcon. Authentication Charlie Bravo 779er. I need you to maintain current position while I deal with our uninvited guest. Chen's voice came through the intercom, barely above a whisper. Jesus, Hammer, Falcon's supposed to be dead. In the NORAD command center, Colonel Hayes frantically pulled up classified files. The authentication code was correct, but according to official records, Colonel Emilia Restrepo had been killed during a test flight of an experimental aircraft in 2013. Her body was never recovered. "Sir," Technical Sergeant Rodriguez called out, "the commercial airliner is changing course. It's moving to intercept the unknown aircraft." On his screen, Hayes watched as Flight 447 began a slow, precise turn that no commercial pilot would ever attempt with passengers aboard. The Boeing 737 was now flying like a military interceptor, positioning itself between the unknown aircraft and the F-22s. Inside the airliner, chaos erupted as passengers felt the sudden banking motion. Flight attendants struggled to maintain their footing, while the captain fought to regain control of his aircraft. "What the hell is happening?" First Officer Reeves shouted over the sound of alarms. "The controls aren't responding." Captain Morrison stared at his instruments in disbelief. Every system showed normal operation, but his aircraft was flying itself, guided by some external intelligence that had somehow penetrated their fly-by-wire systems. In seat 17A, Emilia had unbuckled her seatbelt and was moving toward the front of the aircraft with practiced efficiency. Passengers screamed as turbulence threw them against their seats, but she moved through the chaos with the fluid balance of someone accustomed to high-G maneuvers. The businessman who had been sitting beside her grabbed her arm. "Where are you going? We need to stay seated." She looked down at him with eyes that had seen things no civilian could imagine. "I'm going to save everyone on this plane." The cockpit door should have been locked, but it opened at her touch. Captain Morrison spun in his seat, ready to eject the intruder, but stopped when he saw her bearing. Something in her posture, her confidence, suggested she belonged there. "Who are you?" he demanded. "Someone who knows how to fly," she replied, settling into the jump seat behind him. "And right now, that's what's keeping us alive." The mysterious triangular aircraft had moved closer, positioning itself directly above the commercial airliner with geometric precision. Through the cockpit windows, they could see its dark belly, unmarked by any national insignia or identification numbers. Emilia reached for the radio controls with the unconscious familiarity of muscle memory. Major Williams watched in amazement as the commercial airliner executed a series of maneuvers that should have been impossible for a Boeing 737. The aircraft was now flying in a defensive pattern, using its larger size and mass to screen the F-22s from the mysterious triangular craft. "Control, Hammer Flight. The commercial traffic is flying evasive maneuvers. Repeat, the airliner is maneuvering like a fighter aircraft." "Copy, Hammer. Stand by for updated orders." Colonel Hayes was reading classified files that officially didn't exist. Colonel Emilia Restrepo had been the Air Force's most gifted test pilot, selected for a black project involving experimental aircraft technology. Her last mission had involved testing a prototype stealth interceptor with capabilities far beyond anything in the current inventory. The mission had gone wrong. The aircraft had vanished from radar during a test flight over the Nevada desert, and despite extensive search efforts, neither pilot nor aircraft was ever found. The project was classified beyond top secret, buried in files that only a handful of people had clearance to access. But the authentication codes didn't lie. Somehow, impossibly, Falcon was alive. "Sir," Rodriguez called out urgently, "the triangular aircraft is accelerating. It's moving to attack position on the commercial traffic." Hayes grabbed his radio. "Hammer Flight, weapons free. Protect the commercial airliner at all costs." Williams armed his AIM-120 missiles and locked onto the triangular aircraft. But as his targeting computer achieved lock-on, the mysterious craft simply vanished, not from visual sight, but from radar. His targeting system showed empty sky where the aircraft had been moments before. "Viper, do you have contact?" "Negative, Hammer. It just disappeared from my scope." Inside Flight 447, Emilia spoke calmly into the radio. "Hammer Flight, this is Falcon. The aircraft you're tracking is using adaptive camouflage technology. It's still there, but your sensors can't paint it." "How do you know that?" Williams demanded. "Because I helped design it." The revelation hit the F-22 pilots like a physical blow. 12 years ago, Black Projects had been developing stealth technology that could fool even the most advanced sensors. If Falcon had been involved in testing such aircraft, she might be the only person who knew how to counter it. "Falcon, what are your instructions?" "Maintain defensive position. I'm going to try something that's either brilliant or suicidal." Through the cockpit windows, Captain Morrison watched Emilia's hands move across controls she shouldn't know existed. Hidden panels in the instrument console slid open, revealing systems that weren't on any Boeing schematic. "What is this aircraft?" he whispered. "It's not what you think it is," she replied, her fingers dancing across unfamiliar switches. "This plane was modified 12 years ago as a backup system. I've been waiting for someone to activate it." The Boeing 737 shuddered as hidden engines came online, supplementing the standard turbofans with technology that belonged in a science fiction novel. The aircraft's flight characteristics changed instantly, becoming more responsive, more agile. Above them, the triangular aircraft reappeared on radar, dropping out of stealth mode as it moved to attack position. Emilia could see it clearly now, sleek, predatory, and bearing the subtle modifications she remembered from her final test flight. It was her aircraft, the prototype she had been flying when everything went wrong. Someone had found it, repaired it, and was now using it for purposes she could only imagine. "Falcon to all aircraft," she transmitted. "The bogey is a YF-24 prototype, experimental stealth fighter capable of speeds up to Mach 3.5. I'm the only pilot who's ever successfully flown it." Williams felt sweat beading inside his helmet. A Mach 3.5 fighter could outrun anything in their inventory. If it decided to attack, the F-22s would be helpless. "Falcon, how do we stop it?" "We don't, I do." The modified Boeing 737 suddenly accelerated with impossible force, climbing toward the triangular fighter with the determination of a guided missile. Inside the cabin, passengers screamed as G-forces pressed them into their seats, but the aircraft's structure held. Emilia's hands moved with the precision of a surgeon coaxing performance from the hybrid aircraft that its designers had never imagined. She was flying on pure instinct now, muscle memory guiding her through maneuvers that existed in no textbook. "Hammer Flight, clear the area. This is about to get complicated." The two aircraft, one a modified airliner carrying hundreds of innocent lives, the other a prototype fighter with capabilities beyond current technology, began a deadly dance in the thin air of the stratosphere. But this wasn't a battle between pilots. It was a confrontation between a woman and her past, playing out at 37,000 feet above the Colorado Rockies. The YF-24 prototype responded to Emilia's approach with inhuman precision, rolling inverted and diving toward the Earth with acceleration that would have crushed a human pilot. But there was no human aboard the triangular fighter, only artificial intelligence programmed with combat algorithms derived from Emilia's own flying techniques. "It's learning from me," she muttered, pulling the modified Boeing through a turn that should have torn the wings off. The aircraft responded with surprising grace, its hidden modifications allowing maneuvers impossible for a standard airliner. Captain Morrison clung to his seat, watching instruments redline as his aircraft performed like a fighter jet. "This is insane. We have 300 passengers aboard." "And they'll all die if that prototype reaches its target," Emilia replied, her voice steady despite the crushing G-forces. "The AI controlling it has been programmed to eliminate any aircraft carrying someone it perceives as a threat." "What threat?" "Me." The truth hit Morrison like a physical blow. This wasn't a random encounter. It was an assassination attempt. Someone had discovered that Colonel Emilia Restrepo was still alive and had sent her own prototype aircraft to eliminate her. Through the radio, William's voice crackled. "Falcon, we're reading impossible performance numbers from your aircraft. How is a commercial airliner pulling 7GS? Long story, Hammer. Right now, I need you to create a distraction. Draw the prototype's attention while I position for an attack run." Attack run, with an airliner full of passengers. Trust me. The two F-22s split formation, approaching the YF-24 from opposite directions while maintaining a safe distance. Their radar painted the prototype clearly now, its stealth systems apparently overwhelmed by the need to track multiple targets simultaneously. Williams locked his targeting system onto the triangular fighter. "Falcon, we have missile lock on the bogey." "Negative on weapons," Emilia responded quickly. "Your missiles won't penetrate its defensive systems. I need to get close." "How close?" "Closer than you want to know." The modified Boeing climbed toward the prototype with desperate urgency. In the cabin, passengers had stopped screaming and were now holding each other in terrified silence, sensing that their fate hung in the balance of whatever was happening outside their windows. Emilia could see the YF-24's weapon system cycling online, preparing to eliminate the threat she represented. The prototype's AI had calculated that destroying the airliner would complete its mission, regardless of collateral damage. But artificial intelligence, no matter how sophisticated, couldn't account for human intuition. Emilia knew this aircraft better than anyone. She had helped design its systems, tested its limits, and ultimately paid the price for its capabilities. "Hammer flight on my mark. I want you to paint the prototype with your targeting radar. Everything you've got, full power." "Falcon, that won't accomplish anything against its stealth systems." "It's not about penetrating the stealth. It's about overloading the sensors." Williams understood immediately. The YF-24's advanced systems required enormous processing power to maintain stealth while tracking multiple targets. A concentrated radar bombardment might create enough electronic noise to blind the AI momentarily. "All aircraft, weapons radar to maximum power. Paint the bogey on Falcon's mark." The prototype was now less than a mile away, its weapon systems locked onto the commercial airliner. Emilia could see the familiar lines of the aircraft she had once flown, now twisted into an instrument of death. "Mark!" The F-22s unleashed the full power of their targeting radars, flooding the prototype with electromagnetic energy. For a crucial second, the YF-24's sensors were overwhelmed, its AI struggling to process the electronic chaos. In that moment of confusion, Emilia struck. The modified Boeing rolled inverted and dove directly at the prototype, its hidden weapons systems that shouldn't exist on a commercial aircraft, coming online with deadly precision. The range closed to less than 300 feet before the YF-24's AI recovered and began evasive maneuvers. But it was too late. Emilia had anticipated its response, calculated the timing with the precision that had made her a legend. The weapons lock achieved, she squeezed the trigger on systems that had been dormant for 12 years. The prototype fighter exploded in a brilliant fireball, its advanced technology reduced to scattered debris falling toward the earth far below. The shockwave rocked the modified Boeing, but its reinforced structure held. "Target destroyed," Emilia transmitted, her voice betraying no emotion. "Hammer flight resumed standard escort formation." In the NORAD command center, Colonel Hayes watched the tactical display return to normal. One contact remained where there had been three, Flight 447, continuing its journey toward Denver as if nothing had happened. "Sir," Technical Sergeant Rodriguez reported, "We're receiving a transmission from the commercial flight. They're reporting mechanical difficulties and requesting immediate medical assistance upon landing." Hayes nodded, understanding the code. Whatever had just happened at 37,000 feet would require extensive debriefing and classification. The official report would list it as a training exercise, nothing more. But he knew better. He had just witnessed the return of a ghost, and the ghost had saved 300 innocent lives. Inside the Boeing 737, Amelia stood slowly, her legs unsteady after the extreme maneuvering. The aircraft was flying normally now, its hidden systems powering down automatically. Captain Morrison stared at her with a mixture of awe and terror. "Who are you really?" he whispered. She looked out the cockpit window at the clear sky ahead, where the F-22s maintained their escort formation. "I'm exactly who I said I was, a pilot who knows how to fly." In the cabin, passengers were beginning to stir, confused by the sudden return to normal flight. Most would never know how close they had come to death, or that their salvation had come from a woman in seat 17A who was supposed to have died 12 years ago. Amelia made her way back to her seat, past passengers who looked at her with new respect but didn't understand why. The businessman who had grabbed her arm earlier now watched her with something approaching reverence. "Are you really just a waitress?" he asked quietly. She settled into seat 17A and fastened her seatbelt. "Sometimes," she replied, touching the Falcon pin on her collar, "when I'm not saving the world." The Boeing 737 continued its descent toward Denver International Airport, escorted by two F-22 Raptors whose pilots would never forget the day they flew with a legend. In air traffic control towers across 3 states, controllers marked the incident as resolved, filing reports that would disappear into classified databases within hours. But in the thin air above Colorado, where contrails dissolved into memory and the sky held its secrets, the name Falcon was whispered with new respect by pilots who had witnessed the impossible. The approach to Denver International was routine, but Major Williams found himself unable to concentrate on standard procedures. The woman in seat 17A had just demonstrated flying skills that bordered on supernatural, using an aircraft that shouldn't exist to defeat technology that was supposedly impossible. "Control, Hammer flight requesting permission to escort the commercial traffic to final approach." "Negative, Hammer. Resume normal patrol duties. The situation is contained." But Williams wasn't ready to let this go. "Control, requesting clarification on the passenger manifest, specifically seat 17A." A long pause. Then Colonel Hayes' voice came directly through the secure channel. "Hammer flight, that information is classified beyond your clearance level. You will file a standard training report and discuss this mission with no one." "Understood." "Understood, sir." The F-22s peeled away from the commercial airliner, resuming their routine patrol while the Boeing 737 continued its descent. But both pilots knew they had witnessed something that would change their understanding of what was possible in aviation. Lieutenant Chen broke the silence. "Hammer, that really was her, wasn't it, Falcon?" Williams watched the airliner disappear into the approach pattern, becoming just another dot of light in the maze of commercial traffic surrounding Denver. "Yeah, Viper, that was her." "But how? She was declared killed in action 12 years ago." "Sometimes," Williams replied, thinking of stories told in pilot-ready rooms and classified files that officially didn't exist. "The dead don't stay dead when there's still work to do." As Flight 447 touched down on runway 34L, emergency vehicles were already positioning themselves around the terminal. Not because of any actual emergency, but because certain agencies needed to conduct immediate debriefings of key passengers. Captain Morrison brought the aircraft to a stop at Gate B-17, exactly as scheduled despite everything that had happened. His hands shook as he completed the post-flight checklist, unable to process the reality that his commercial airliner had been temporarily transformed into a weapons platform. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Denver International Airport," he announced, his voice surprisingly steady. "Local time is 3:47 p.m. and the current temperature is 72 degrees. We thank you for flying with us today." In seat 17A, Amelia gathered her small carry-on bag and prepared to disembark. The businessman watched her with obvious curiosity, but she offered no explanation for what had transpired. Some secrets were too dangerous to share. As passengers filed off the aircraft, several men in dark suits boarded, their credentials identifying them as federal agents. They spoke quietly with Captain Morrison and his crew, taking statements that would never appear in any public record. Amelia walked through the jet bridge like any other passenger, but she could feel eyes tracking her movement. In the terminal, more agents waited, their presence subtle but unmistakable to someone trained in operational security. Ms. Restrepo, a woman in a charcoal business suit, approached, her bearing suggesting military background. "I'm Agent Sarah Kim, NSA. We need to talk." Amelia nodded, having expected this moment for 12 years. "I figured you'd find me eventually." They walked through the terminal together, past travelers oblivious to the drama that had unfolded above their heads. Agent Kim led her to a conference room in the airport's administrative section, where other officials waited with files and recording equipment. "You've been dead for 12 years, Kim stated without preamble. "Yet here you are, flying modified aircraft and engaging prototype fighters. We need to know everything." Amelia sat down carefully, her body still aching from the G-forces of aerial combat. "Everything is classified above your clearance level, but I'll tell you what I can." The debriefing lasted 4 hours. Amelia explained how she had survived the crash of the F-22 prototype, how she had spent years in hiding, while enemies of the state attempted to acquire the classified technology, and how she had finally resurfaced when that same technology threatened innocent lives. "The aircraft you engaged today," Agent Kim pressed, "how did you know it would be there?" "I didn't, but I knew it was looking for me." Amelia's eyes held depths of experience that spoke of years spent in shadow. "The AI controlling it was programmed with my flight patterns, my tactical preferences. It was designed to hunt me specifically." "By whom?" "That's the question, isn't it?" Amelia stood, sensing the interview was concluding. "Someone recovered the wreckage from my test flight and reverse-engineered the technology. Someone with access to classified programs and unlimited resources." Agent Kim exchanged glances with her colleagues. The implications were staggering, a conspiracy that reached into the highest levels of military and civilian leadership, involving technology that officially didn't exist. "We'll need you to remain available for further questioning," Kim said finally. Amelia smiled, an expression that didn't reach her eyes. "You can find me at the Frontier Diner on Colfax Avenue. I serve the best coffee in Denver." She walked out of the conference room and through the terminal, leaving behind a room full of federal agents who were beginning to understand that some ghosts were too dangerous to stay buried. Outside, the Colorado sunset painted the sky in shades of gold and crimson, while in the distance, F-22 Raptors continued their patrols, their pilots carrying a secret that would reshape their understanding of duty and sacrifice. The Frontier Diner had been Amelia's refuge for 8 years, a place where she could disappear into the anonymity of serving coffee and taking orders from truckers and late-shift workers. The owner, an elderly Korean War veteran named Bill Santos, had asked no questions when she'd applied for the job, paying her cash and ignoring her lack of references. Tonight, as she tied her apron and began the closing routine, the diner felt different. The secret she had carried for 12 years was no longer hers alone, and that changed everything. "You okay, Em?" Bill asked, noticing her distraction. You seem different tonight." She looked at the man who had become like a father to her, wondering how much she could tell him. Just thinking about old times. The military kind of old times. Bill had guessed her background years ago, recognizing the bearing and discipline that never fully left career soldiers. But he had respected her privacy, never pushing for details about her past. "Yeah," she admitted, "the military kind." The bell above the door chimed, and Major Williams walked in wearing civilian clothes. His presence in the diner could mean only one thing: the official debriefing was over, but the real conversation was just beginning. "Coffee?" Amelia asked, as if serving F-22 pilots was a normal part of her evening routine. "Black, please." Williams settled into a corner booth where they could talk privately. "Nice place, quiet." She poured his coffee and sat across from him, noting how young he looked without his flight helmet. "You're not supposed to be here, Major." "Probably not, but I needed to understand what happened today." He studied her face, searching for answers. "You saved our lives up there, didn't you? The prototype would have taken us out before we even knew we were under attack." Amelia nodded slowly. The YF-24 was designed to eliminate fighter threats before engaging primary targets. You would have been first on the list. "And the passengers on that airliner?" "Acceptable collateral damage, according to the AI's programming." Her voice carried the weight of someone who had seen too much unnecessary death. "It was hunting me, but it would have killed everyone else to complete the mission." Williams leaned back in the booth, processing implications that extended far beyond a single aerial engagement. "Someone programmed that thing with your flight patterns, your tactical knowledge. They used you to create the perfect weapon. And then they tried to use it to kill me." Amelia refilled his coffee cup, the gesture automatic after years of diner work. "The question is why now? Why reveal the prototype's existence for one assassination attempt?" "Maybe because you're the only person who could stop it." She considered this, remembering the moment when she had faced her own technology turned against her. "The YF-24 program was terminated after my death. All prototypes were supposed to be destroyed. But someone kept one. Or built new ones from the recovered plans." Amelia's expression darkened as she contemplated the possibilities. If they've been manufacturing YF-24s in secret, using stolen technology to create an invisible air force. Williams felt ice forming in his stomach. An fleet of prototype stealth fighters, controlled by artificial intelligence and equipped with weapons systems beyond current defense capabilities, could reshape global military balance overnight. "We have to stop them." "We?" Amelia looked at the young pilot with something approaching affection. "Major, you did your job today. You protected American airspace and civilian lives. The rest is above your pay grade."